So what
Okay.
is the third thing you want to know?
All right. So you kind of spoke a little to it, but I want to know how you've defined your revenue mix of the consulting that you do, obviously the advertising, your newsletter, you have digital downloads, kind of the mix of active versus
Mhm.
passive income
Yeah,
streams, that sort of.
cool. So let me start with, I don't believe there's any such thing as passive income. So
Yeah, I found
yeah,
that out.
I hate that phrase and I don't think about it that way. It's funny. I say all the time, it takes a lot of activity to generate passive income. So I don't think about it like that. I do have multiple revenue streams. And the way that I have thought about it is consulting revenue and non-consulting revenue. And what that really means
Mhm.
for me, and I think this is actually even more applicable for people who may not do consulting or whatever services. You can think about it as services and products, but really to me, it's
Mhm.
scalable versus non-scalable. So
Right.
for me, my
Yep.
consulting revenue is not, it's not that it, I call it non-scalable because I can only take on so many clients. I can only charge
Mhm.
so much. There's a ceiling, right? So it can scale to a
Yeah.
certain point, but ultimately it can't scale infinitely. What I consider scalable revenue is the non-consulting stuff. So it's a product, it's ads in my newsletters. In a hypothetical world, that could be infinitely scalable. If I create a course, I
Right.
can sell that to 8 million people in theory, right?
Right. Right.
I'd like to, but, so, so that's how I think about it. And so for me, my business, and again, I've been sort of full-time independent creator for about 6 years now. And I would say for the first 4 or so of those years, 3.5 or 4 years, I would say that 90 to 95% of my revenue was coming from consulting. And 5 to
Mhm.
10% was coming from info products or other stuff. So
Right.
90% was what I would consider non-scalable. And it was going well and I was having success, but I was starting to see I can only do so much of
Yeah.
this, right? And that if I really want to sort of go bigger, quote unquote, bigger, both in terms of helping more people, earning more
Mhm.
revenue, I was going to have to build out the sort of scalable side. So I would say about 2.5 years ago, I made it a real priority to grow that and figure out that's when I introduced ads in my newsletter. That's when I started dabbling more with info products and subscription products. And that has evolved over there.
Mhm.
It's not like you just say, all right, let's do that. And the first thing works. Like there have been,
Yeah.
there have been changes and evolutions, but it has been a very deliberate shift to try to balance that out. So now I would say it varies a bit month to month, but in general, I'd say I'm about 65% consulting revenue and 35% non-consulting revenue or scalable revenue,
That's good.
which has been
Yeah.
fantastic. And the other thing that has happened as that has happened is on the consulting side, it has allowed me to work with fewer clients. It has allowed me to charge higher
Mhm.
rates. So not only has it helped from a
Right.
sort of balance standpoint, it's actually made the consulting side quote unquote better. I can be more selective. I can charge more
That's
money
interesting. Yeah.
because I have this
Mm.
other revenue stream that's allowing me to sort of be pickier on that other side. So I
Right. Right.
strongly
Yeah.
recommend it for lots of people, even if you want to sort of just be on the services consulting side, having those other revenue streams can help make that help you give you more freedom to do it the way you want to do it. So I thought to answer this question, I'd sort of with that background, run you through a few things and a few numbers here. I know everyone loves to hear the numbers and hear how it works, right? So
Sure.
a couple things. So first of all, on the consulting side, the majority of my consulting is one-off short-term projects, not ongoing retainer month to month. I have a couple of those,
Mhm.
but for the most part, it's either one-off clarity calls or 4 to 6 week engagements, typically. A lot of people would do it
Yeah. Okay.
differently. That's how I've sort of chosen to do it. On the product side, there's basically really two, well, I'll say three, but there's two that are driving the majority of my non-consulting revenue. So one is, and not in any particular order, but one is ads in my newsletter, which went from no ads for 4 years of writing a newsletter to now having ads. Currently charge $200 an ad and sell out basically 5 a week. That price is going to go up soon. So that has turned into a solid
That's
revenue
great.
stream out of nowhere and completely scalable because there's really no additional work beyond, me writing the newsletter. And then the other is my paid info product called Skill Sessions, which are 1-hour video workshops once every 2 months on a specific topic. Those are available both as an annual subscription for $150 a year or as for individual purchase. So you can buy one session for $50 or for $150, you get 6 a year plus whatever's in the archive. So it's a pretty good deal. Speaking of which, if anyone's hearing this and wants to check it out, you can go to joshspector.com/sessions to learn more about those. Then I have a newsletter accelerator course, which I created a year or two ago. Well, actually, I created it a few years ago and I updated it a year or so ago. I don't do much to actively promote that now, but it is available on an ongoing basis. So that brings in some money, but that's sort of a distant third. So to give you an idea, also the amount I earn from these can definitely fluctuate month to month. So for example, ads in my newsletter, I had 6 times more sales in February than I did this month because but what happens is people book way out in advance. So at a certain point, you get so far out in advance that the sales slow down, and then you have a spike. Because like if someone were to buy now, they're not going to get it for a couple months, a few months or whatever. So that fluctuates, and as does my promotion of it, because I'm sold out regularly and far in advance. I don't promote it that much, and then once in a while, when I want to give it a boost, I promote it, and it jumps. So it's steady income, but it fluctuates in terms of when those purchases are happening. The same thing with my skill sessions. So besides new subscriptions, I have people who renew, right? The annual subscription. So some months there are more renewals than others, just because more people subscribed that month a year ago than whatever. So that can fluctuate as well, right? So last month I had 2 times more renewals than this month. But that's not based on a percentage, just based on more people subscribed last June than subscribed last July. So these numbers are steady, but they'll fluctuate. So to give you an idea last month of how it all broke down, so 67% of my revenue came from consulting, 33% from products and subscriptions. Of the products and subscription revenue, 25% of it was new skill session subscribers. 21% was individual purchases of skill sessions. So this is huge. A lot of people that sell subscription content products don't make those products available individually. And I think they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Clearly.
Yeah.
And also those individual purchases a lot of times turn into, when someone buys one of my individual ones, I then send them an offer and say, hey, I'll refund it if you want to upgrade to the full subscription. So the individual purchases also lead to full subscriptions. 20% of the product revenue came from my newsletter ads. 20% came from renewals of the skill session subscribers. So again, this is compounding effect, right? So next year, hopefully I should have even more renewals because I have 3 years worth of renewals.
That's right.
And then 10% came from newsletter course sales. Again, I don't do much to promote it, but it's there and people find it. So the three kind of big takeaways for this. One is, I recommend that you monetize your product and your expertise in multiple ways. If you look at me, I have consulting, I have advertising, I have a subscription info product and individual purchase of the info product, right? I think that winds up getting me much more than if it was like I just had one product and one consulting thing. The second is that subscription revenue compounds. If your product is valuable enough for people to renew it. Again, so if I look at like last month, 20% of my product revenue was renewals from a year ago. So that is a big deal. And as I look forward, actually from the past 2 years. So But if I look forward 2-3 years in the future, that number should continue to grow. So there's, keeping in mind, especially when you start out, I think sometimes people kind of get discouraged and go, oh, but I only got a couple people to take it. Yeah, but if those people paid you, my subscription is $150. So if 10 people buy a subscription and that's $1,500 this month, well, it's 6 or 7 of them renew next year on top of another 10. And then a year, like just the compounding effect really adds up. And then the third thing, again, like I said before, I think if you're not making subscription products, at least some piece of them available for an individual purchase, I think you're leaving money on the table. And I think it's a great way to get people in. There are people who look at my thing and they go, I don't know that I want to commit to $150 for a year. I kind of just want that one, and again, a lot of those people buy and then upgrade to the full subscription. And maybe they did just want that one. Maybe they just wanted to learn how to grow their newsletter and that's all they care about. So they're not going to buy a subscription, but they will pay $50 to buy that one. And in buying that one, they might tell other people about it. So like, there's a lot of advantages to the individual sales. Yeah. And that's my crash course in how I earn money. And actually I'll be adding, this podcast, hopefully, if it continues to go well, will eventually have some sort of sponsor relationship to it. So this will become another revenue stream. And to be honest, that also was one of the reasons that I started it, seeing what had happened with my newsletter after years of not running ads and then realizing, oh, this is actually really valuable, made me realize, okay, well, a podcast could be monetized in addition to being helpful to my audience. Speaking of which, hopefully this was helpful to you.
Cool.
Cool.
Absolutely. No, this is fantastic.